And we're back. Welcome back to Stories from the River. Davin, welcome back.
So great to be back here.
So great to have you here. So good.
So good.
So great. Davin, we've been talking about your books. We talked about your background, your history, how you took this non-traditional path, and you had your plan A, you had Finding Purpose at Work, the double meaning title. We had talked about the thief of purpose and the 12 thieves, and then the main thief. And you've dropped a lot of great content on us in this Davin Salvagno series. And we've been blessed by this. People who listen to this or watch this on YouTube, because we're on all the platforms, will certainly be blessed by what you've been sharing with us. Got one more topic I'd like to hit you with.
Welcome to Stories from the River, a show in which we go behind the scenes at Broad River Retail.
Now, you've been doing the Purpose Summit since 2019. You skipped 2020 because of the pandemic, and you went back to 2021. So 2019 in Michigan, Detroit, in the inner city. We talked about that with Chris Lambert.
That's right.
He wrote the book Next Level Nonprofit.
Awesome book.
Maybe we'll link to that. 2021, you were at Mount Clemens in a theater in Mount Clemens outside of Detroit.
That's right.
2022, we attended. That's when you blew it up. You're like, we're going to Notre Dame. And you went to the University of Notre Dame. Dr. Amber Selking helped you get there.
That's right.
And you did that 2 years in a row. We sent like a dozen or so people the first year at Notre Dame, and the second year we sent like several more leaders, and it was just there this year. And then at this one at Notre Dame, you had a big announcement that the Purpose Summit was moving. And you and I had been talking about this for maybe a year or so, like, hey, let's do some regional summits. Or I said, you can maybe even do a regional one, bring it to Charlotte, or you could maybe do a retail one. We'll help you get folks here in Charlotte. And then you just kind of hit me up one day like, hey, what do you think about having the Purpose Summit in Charlotte? I'm like, oh, well, that's come away. And so this conversation's been going on this year. So what did you unveil at the Purpose Summit? And tell us about like how that was received.
Yeah. So, it's been awesome to watch this journey and stewarding this thing that's the Purpose Summit. We don't take it lightly. There is a ton of discernment that goes into when this is, where it is, who speaks, what the structure and the flow is of it. I mean, there's a lot of energy. This isn't a conference. It's an experience. It's a transformative leadership experience. And as you've said, it's taken many shapes and forms over the last 5 years. And Charlotte just kept on coming up. You were the first one that put it on my heart. And then there was just one after the other conversations that we were having that Charlotte just kept on coming up. And so at the Purpose Summit last year, I was, we had made the decision and said, okay, we're going to do it in Charlotte. And I can maybe share a little bit about how we got there. But
This past year.
Yeah,
2023.
So we made a decision that we're going to go all in on Charlotte. And so we created a little bit of a sizzle reel, if you will, and I was nervous to play it because we had been at Notre Dame for 2 years. We had built a lot of regional support. There was a lot of support from all over the place. We had people come from all over the country. They came from Europe. They came from Asia. I mean, there was a huge diversity of people there from all over the world. But there was a lot of support in South Bend, Indiana, having done the summit 2 years in a row. So I said, this is either going to go really bad or it's going to be really good, because South Bend isn't easy to get to. And one of the biggest challenges that we had been told was just how, there's only 9 airports that fly into South Bend. And so most people had to fly into Chicago and then drive 2 hours. And I was amazed at the hundreds of people that flew to Chicago, rented a car and drove 2 hours to Notre Dame to go to the Purpose Summit. So we were excited to see how this, would be received, and we were also nervous. And so we played the video, and as soon as it said, it rolled through 2019, 2021, 22, 23, and then it said, and in 2024, the Purpose Summit celebrates 5 years in, and it showed the Charlotte skyline, and the place erupted, led by your memory makers. Heather and the entire team there just jumped out of their seats, and we knew that was the right decision.
That's awesome. That's so good.
So good.
And, we had a direct flight from, you talked about many airlines, only 9 can fly into South Bend. We actually had a direct flight from Charlotte through American to South Bend. And so that was great. We felt like at home there, but we are super excited. Now, your 5th anniversary, the 5th ever Purpose Summit will be held in Charlotte. You're limiting it to how many people?
1,000.
1,000 attendees for you described it just now, a transformative Leadership Conference.
Experience. Transformative leadership experience.
A transformative leadership experience.
That's right.
And you're going to have, it's going to be at 2 locations, right? So tell us about the where we just had a preview dinner last week. So about a week ago, right?
That's right.
So tell us about the locations where you're going to have the Purpose Summit.
Yeah. So before I reveal the locations, I think I need to tell you how we ended up at those locations, because I shared this at the end of the dinner that we had last week, because this is so much bigger than me. It's so much bigger than any of us in how this was being shaped. I mean, it is clearly divinely shaped. So when we were looking at site selections, we hired a company to specifically do site selections in Charlotte. And, we had some big aspirations. We looked at Bank of America Stadium, because of course we did it at Notre Dame Stadium. Not of course filling the bowl, because that would be, 80,000 people and it would be outside. And if it rained, then it would get canceled.
Not yet. But
the amenities to the stadium that can hold 1,000 people. And so we looked at Bank of America. Bank of America Stadium wasn't available in the spring. Then we looked at the Blumenthal. I think, did I say that right? Blumenthal Performing Arts Center, and using all of their theaters. And there was availability at the different theaters, but none of them were available on the same dates. Right. So that was really hard. So that didn't work out. And we continued to say we're not going to do the Purpose Summit in a typical hotel conference center or convention center, because then it becomes a conference. It doesn't become a transformative leadership experience, because part of the experience from the first summit being in a repurposed, abandoned school building in a blighted neighborhood in Detroit, to the second time being in a repurposed, reopened 100-year-old theater in a economically challenged city of Mount Clemens, Michigan, to then being at Notre Dame Stadium, which obviously an elevated experience in the previous 2, but still a very unique location, not somewhere that you would expect, this type of a leadership experience to be at. We've always wanted to make sure that a part of the experience in and of itself takes people into an environment that is unusual, because it triggers something in the heart and the mind to be able to receive what they're there to receive, and builds memories. You talk about memory makers, right? It builds memories that stand out compared to other conferences that they might have gone to. So we were struggling to find place in Charlotte to do it. And I said, I know we're being called to do this in Charlotte. And I had just been at C12's current conference in Denver, and there was a lot of confirmation about Charlotte. And we still hadn't made the final decision yet to do it in Charlotte. We were like 95% of the way there. And I'm sitting in the airport after the C12 current conference, and with my friend Dave Smith, who I talked about in a previous episode, who gave me the book Halftime. And we're sitting there, and we're in this Mexican restaurant on Cinco de Mayo, and it's on the second floor of, I think, the A concourse in Denver. If you've ever been to Denver's airport, it's a big airport. And the second floor is not quite very visible, so no one really even knew it was there. And we kind of went away from the crowd. And it's Cinco de Mayo, and there's no one in this restaurant. So one of two things. This is either going to be a really bad Mexican experience, or people just didn't know it was there. So we sit in there, and it was some of the best guac and queso I've ever had. It was fantastic. And I'm sitting here talking to my friend Dave about this. And this table gets sat right next to us. I mean, literally right next to us. They could have sat anywhere in the restaurant, and they sit right next to us. And this girl all of a sudden stops, and she leans over and she says, "Excuse me, how's the guac?" And I said, "The guac's fantastic." She says, "Can I have a chip?" And I said, "That's never happened in my life where a complete stranger just asks to try a chip." And so I think we might even start the summit with that story and put like a picture of a chip and guac up on the screen or something. But I said, "Sure." And I hand her the bowl, and she takes a bite, and she goes, "Listen, I couldn't help but listen to your conversation. My name's Chrissy. This is my husband, Ramon. We just moved from Brooklyn, New York to Charlotte. He's a pastor, and I'm an event planner, and you should absolutely do the summit in Charlotte, and you should do it at Camp North End." And I said, "Camp North End? What is Camp North End?" So I start Googling this, and I look it up, and Camp North End's logo looks just like the Purpose Summit logo. And you can't make this stuff up. So I said, "Okay, let's go do a site visit." So we go and do a site visit. And Canton North End, if you're not familiar with Charlotte, is this awesome upcoming development area. It was an abandoned Ford factory, 78 acres that they've repurposed into this massive incubation center just north of Charlotte. And they've got this awesome place called the Revelry that holds 1,200 people. And then that's where the Purpose Summit's going to have its main sessions. And then just down the street, about 6 minutes down the street, we always have to have some sort of immersive experience. We've rented out the NASCAR Hall of Fame, the entire building for an entire day, where we will do interactive and immersive breakout sessions, workshops, team building experiences. So it'll be kind of this 3-day experience where we do main sessions at Camp North End. Buses will pick people up, take them to the NASCAR Hall of Fame, and we'll do more of the immersive sessions there and then bring them back and forth between the two venues.
You're right. The environment makes such a big difference. And so the Revelry is going to be an amazing venue. And then to bus people to, I just think moving around, to bus people to the NASCAR Hall of Fame, and that's an immersive place as well for the breakout sessions. It's going to make it super, super memorable. And is there going to be like after the session, like some follow-up workshops do you want to tell that story?
Yeah, that's really good. And that's been inspired by you. And then I got to give Jeffrey Crabb from Diamond Sea Trailers a shout out, really a brainchild of theirs. So we're going to, let me tell you how this happened, and I'll tell you what that is. So back in 2022, when Lippert, who's been a massive supporter of the Purpose Summit, Jason Lippert has an amazing story. I wrote about him in the book, Finding Purpose at Work, but they've been big supporters of the summit for the last few years. They've sent, 50 plus people to the summit. And they invited a guy named Jeffrey Crabb, which was one of their vendors. You often don't think to bring your vendors and suppliers to conferences, but they did. And this isn't a conference, it's an experience. So he brings them, and he had a transformative experience. And so the following year, he brought 12 people from Diamond Sea Trailers with him, and then they brought 12 other companies with them that were vendors and suppliers and customers of theirs from Dallas, Texas to South Bend, Indiana. And he had called me and he said, "Hey, Davin, when the summit's done, is there a space on Notre Dame campus that we can have like a post-summit strategic planning session? Because last year we came and it was awesome. And we were going to go back and do all these things in our company. And 9 months passed and we did nothing. And I don't want that to happen again. And so what I want to do is I want to make sure we do it, but I also want to make sure that the people that we're bringing with us, our vendors, our suppliers, our customers that we're bringing with us, that they go on this journey with us and that we hold each other accountable." And so we had rented a space for them, and they used that for a post-strategic planning session. I said, we ought to do that every year. And so the Le Méridien Sheraton Hotel, which is just on the other side of Uptown Charlotte, which has a beautiful view of the skyline. That's the main hotel that people will be staying at. We've got the whole hotel blocked off for people who are coming out of town. We've already reserved all of their ballrooms for any sponsors that want to have a post-summit strategic planning session with their teams, with their customers, with their vendors, or just make it open to any of the attendees or companies that want to come and say, "Hey, we're going to have a post-summit strategic session. Here's what we plan to do with this material. And if you want to be a part of that or sit on it, you're welcome to."
And that's going to be on May 1st?
That'll be on May 1st. So the summit will be done at noon, and then the summit will go from basically 2 o'clock in the afternoon on April 29th on Monday to noon on Wednesday. And then there'll be these available optional post-summit strategic planning sessions basically from 1 to 4 o'clock on the 1st.
So it's a 46-hour experience with
There's sleep in there. There's some sleep in there.
There's some sleep in there. 46-hour experience. Sleep beforehand,
Right.
and then maybe a 4-hour bonus session for installment and collaborating with other companies or with your own company.
That's right.
And Coca-Cola Consolidated is going to run T-Factor during
They are. Coca-Cola, this will be the first year that T-Factor will be a part of the summit. It'll be an entire session that is bolted within the experience. So you'll have a choice to go to various breakout sessions or experience the immersive T-Factor program as one of our largest supporters and sponsors.
Is Broad River Retail going to do one of the post experience sessions?
I believe so. In fact, Broad River Retail, as of right now, is our largest sponsor and supporter of the summit. And I believe the number that I heard that they're sending to the summit might actually be a triple-digit number. I think I heard the number 100. We're going to try to bring 100 people to the summit.
Listen, we are. We're going to make that happen.
All right.
We're going to remove the thief of unbelief.
All right.
We're going to believe that we can do it. And here's what I tell anyone listening. This is a transformative leadership experience. I've not heard anyone who's attended it who didn't take away, just have massive takeaways personally and professionally. And if you grow personally, you will grow professionally and vice versa. And so don't just bring yourself, bring your team. If you are thinking about coming to this experience in Charlotte next spring, don't just bring yourself, bring your team, and don't just bring your company, bring your partners, your vendors, because it's how we're going to create this movement together and make the world better to reverse the Gallup poll where 85% of people don't find meaning or purpose at work, to 85% of people do, and only 15% of people don't. So there's moonshot goals that are embedded with that, but we got to bring people along. We got to bring others along, and so that we can, the belief one day, take Bank of America Stadium and have an 80,000 person experience. Well, why not?
Why not?
Yeah, why not?
That's so good.
Davin, it's going to be an awesome experience, and you're going to be blessed and fortunate and glad that you're a part of that. Now, you've had some big time speakers. Who will be some of the speakers at the 2024 summit?
Yeah, so there'll be some familiar faces and there'll be some new faces. So I don't want to call them fan favorites, but they are fan favorites. Gary Ridge, CEO of WD-40, who's spoken at the last two summits. He's now chairman emeritus of WD-40, but served as CEO of WD-40 25 years, publicly traded company. That's unheard of for a CEO to sit on a publicly traded company for that long. One of the best cultures in the world, 98% engagement rate, just phenomenal organization. He'll be joining us again. Dr. Amber Selking will be coming back. Last year, she made a brief appearance because she had just had their first baby girl, which was awesome. And I gotta tell you, I don't know if she's going to listen to this or not, but she was dead set on making sure she was at the summit. She was supposed to MC the entire thing with me, as she did the year before, and she gave a keynote talk the year before, which was awesome. But this year, she was due 2 weeks before the summit. And so she gives birth and then she texts me, I'm still going to make it. I'm like, it's in 2 weeks. How are you going to do this? And so she texts me a couple of days before the first day. She's like, I don't think I can MC the entire thing, but I think I can make it for day 3. And she shows up for day 3 in a dress and stilettos and goes up on the stage and introduces our one of our closing keynote speakers, which was Jon Gordon. If you're familiar with Jon Gordon's work, he's written 28 books, 15 of them bestsellers, one of the top 10 speakers in the world. And Jon texted me shortly after the summit and said this was one of the most transformative experiences he's been a part of, and he would like to come back. And so we're going to have Jon Gordon back here in Charlotte next year. Awesome. We're going to have Dr. Amber Selking back here next year. We're going to have Gary Ridge here next year. We're going to have Ron Carucci, who wrote To Be Honest. I talked about him in one of our previous episodes. Harvard Business Review author, Forbes contributor, phenomenal person. And then we're going to have some new faces. Mark Whitaker, who's the vice president of leadership and culture for Coca-Cola Consolidated. And also, this is public knowledge, but he's the highest ranking executive in U.S. history to go to prison for fraud. And, he had a transformative experience in prison. And, I was having a conversation with him and he said, I spent 8.5 years in prison. My wife and kids came and visited me every single weekend. And I learned more about being a father and a husband on the weekends in prison than I did as a highly paid executive for 20 years prior before. It's going to be a powerful experience. And so he'll be sharing his talk there. And we've got some other ones that I'm going to wait to share those. But there's going to be it's going to be an awesome experience.
Is Nick Craig coming back?
Nick Craig's coming back. Yeah. This will be his 4th Purpose Summit. He's the one who's called me the Stanley Tucci of Purpose. I can't imagine doing a summit without him. Yeah. But I also don't want to take advantage of him. And so he has an open invite to every summit, and he comes and stays the entire week. I just love seeing him just pour himself into the lives of others. And because here's the thing, we talk about the speakers on stage, but the thing that is most impactful are the conversations that happen off stage and the relationships that are formed off of that. And a lot of these speakers, they don't fly in, do their talk and fly out. They're there for the entire time. Yeah. And the relationships and things that happen off stage are so good. Well,
I had some great conversations with Gary Ridge 2 years ago, and he gave me both of his books, and we have continued that dialogue. He even reposted one of my quotes on LinkedIn recently. And I've read or listened to several of Jon Gordon's book, including I listened to his latest one, The One Truth.
So good.
Yeah. Oh. So he and his daughter was there last year too, right?
Jade, yeah. And she might come back again this year. We've extended an invitation. We're waiting by the time you're listening to this, we might already know that.
Yeah.
But that was awesome. They had never shared the stage together. So Jon and Jade, and the way that happened was Jade and I were speaking at a conference together, and she was just starting to kind of get into the speaking world. And she had shared how she thought Jon's work was a whole bunch of fluff, like her dad's stuff growing up as a teenager, like, he's too positive, he's too motivational. Yeah. And then she got into the real world and worked for a company that treated her poorly. And she was like, you need my dad to come in here, right? And so she had a deep appreciation for that. And I said, have you ever shared that story? And she said, no. And I said, have you ever spoken with your dad on stage? And she had said no. And so then I spoke to Jon and said, would you guys do a talk together, like a father-daughter talk? And would you mind if she shared that story? And they did, and it was awesome.
That is so I was going to say cool, but so good.
So good.
Okay, so Davin, where should someone go to register, to sign up, to sponsor, to learn more about the Purpose Summit?
Excellent. So first of all, thanks for taking the time to share an entire episode on the summit. I don't want this to sound like one big commercial for the summit, but it really is a transformative experience. And if you want to learn more about it, you can go to thepurposesummit.com. Doesn't get more simple than that, thepurposesummit.com. It is for-profit organizations, nonprofit organizations, faith-driven organizations, all under one roof who share a common passion for purpose and people. And all the details are there. Sponsorship information is there. Speakers are there. Sessions are there. It's all at thepurposesummit.com.
That's really great. Davin, and the Revelry is going to be amazing, and you'll be at the rooftop. You can see the Charlotte City skyline. You're going to have people from all over the country there, all different walks of life, all different types of organizations, like you just said, for-profit, nonprofit, or faith-based organizations, and have something for everyone, a dynamic slate of speakers, and an opportunity to really kind of unpack, discover, learn your purpose, and with others who you work with, who you're friends with, or other companies that you work with. So it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You're not going to want to miss it. Davin, thanks so much for coming to Charlotte, for spending this time with our memory makers this past week, for spending time out of your busy day and your schedule. I know you're taking time away from writing The Thief of Purpose, so we're being a little bit of a thief right now by taking your time, but you're sharing it with the world, sharing your story and talking about your books and talking about the book that's upcoming and talking about this Purpose Summit experience, the Transformative Leadership experience. So make sure that you sign up. We'll put the link in the show notes. And thank you so much. I've enjoyed our relationship. Although we've only kind of seen each other in person just on like 2 different events, I feel like we've been friends for decades. And so I'm a big fan, big supporter, and look forward to kind of working with you and continuing as we both progress on this journey of life and business and purpose together. So Davin, thank you so much. So much.
Oh, it has truly been my pleasure. I am so grateful for you, your friendship, your support, and for just being a tremendous example of living this out. I mean, on display for all to see, the epitome of really everything that I talk about and write about. So thank you for shining that spotlight so brightly on this conversation.
Awesome. Hopefully, maybe we'll have you back after you've released the book. We'll have you back again. Hopefully, it's not the first time. That's Stories from the River, the Davin Salvagno episode in series. Thank you so much, Davin. Make sure you go back and listen to episode 1, 2, or 3 if you haven't. It's a 4-part series with Davin. A lot of great nuggets here. Davin Salvagno, thank you so much.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thanks for listening to Stories from the River. To check out more episodes, visit storiesfromtheriver.com. Join us again next week, and remember to like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast.